Witchers! Welcome to the Witcher Lorecast. This is the show where we cover all the different things, characters, details, monsters, and also locations from the Witcher books and video game and show. Today we're talking about Temeria. Toasty is slowly falling out of his camera view. Toasty, what's up, dude? How you doing?
I don't know why I did that.
Toasty's in a silly mood.
I'm not. No.
Yes. No. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Just hungry.
Oh, okay. This is what hungry looks like. Hey. This is fun. We're doing it a little bit earlier today on Monday, and just to let people know, future episodes of this will be pre-recorded because Toasty has a big opportunity to make all the money in the world. And so we're going to have to pre-record some episodes this week. So you may not get to be able to join us for the live shows over the next few weeks, but they're still going to go up on the regular platforms and places at the regular times. So just want to let you guys know about that. But today we're talking about Temeria, the Kingdom of Temeria. Toasty, where do we start?
So Temeria is one of the northern kingdoms. Like most of them, lying south of the Pontar River. Its neighbors are Redania, Karak, Kaidwin, Aedern, Mahakam, Lower Sodden, and Sidaris. So it's just surrounded by everybody.
It's just in the middle.
It's just the middle of everybody. It is a hereditary monarchy. Kingdom, and it's ruled by the Temerian monarchy. Its head of state is the monarch who leads it, or in case of like a monarch dying during their reign, or without a proper heir, you get the Interrex. Interrex is the title of a short-term regent in Temeria, reigning after an unexpected death of a monarch until his successor is chosen.
Interrex.
So it's like an interim. Right. I guess Interrex because it sounds cool.
Well, Rex is sometimes used to mean like king. Like okay. I think there's like a Latin root in there somewhere. So like the interregnum king is basically what that means. That's cool. I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah. The head of the government is the Temerian Royal Council. The commander in chief is the Lord Constable of Temeria. And of course, it has the Temerian Army military branch, and it has its own intelligence service, the Temeria's Intelligence Service.
The TIS.
TIS.
It's like the FBI or the CIA, but it's the TIS.
I was like, wouldn't it be more like the CIA?
Yeah, well, yeah, more like the CIA. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that does come up. They are mentioned. Mm-hmm. Definitely a thing.
I think I was trying to think of something. I guess the other, because the only other place I remember was the Kaidwin. I think Kaidwin had an intelligence service. Because didn't they pick up on like the Banard dropouts, and they were like, "Hey, come here."
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I guess these two locations for whatever need. Capital is Fitsima. The official language is the common speech, so similar to a lot of other places. The demonym of Temerian, or lilies, for an informal and I think generally derogatory way of referring to Temerians.
Like when somebody calls somebody a snowflake. They're like, you're a lily.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Something like that. I think it's generally that's kind of the vibe I got off of it. Mm-hmm. The currency is the Orin, or in Gorsvalin, the noble Groat and Mark.
Groat.
Yeah.
You got any groats on you? It's 3 groats to enter. You're not getting past me without giving me at least 3 groats. That's weird. That sounds weird.
It sounds inappropriate.
It totally does. Like 3 marks. Okay, cool. 3 nobles. That sounds weird, but like, okay, maybe that's type of money because it has a noble on the picture, right? Like the head of a important person. Yeah. But a groat sounds like something you do to somebody when it's probably not pleasant.
Yeah, no, that sounds highly inappropriate. And the religion, quite a lot here. Melitala Asclepius,
Sure.
Lilvani, Lady of the Lake, and Water Lords worship Elat.
Yeah, definitely. Lil Vani. Do you think Lilies? Lil Vani? Do you think there's a connection there?
Yeah.
The toast is
Why
like dying right now. I think you pissed off the Lady of the Lake, and she's now drowning you with the water in you.
Either that or a school of I mispronounced that. They don't like it.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
That was rough. I don't know why.
The gods are real.
I am like
Respect them.
slightly sick, but I wasn't expecting that. Anyway, moving on to the Society of Temeria. Temerians are considered very polite and religious, but like so many other kingdoms, do not fully accept representatives of the so-called elder races.
So-called elder races.
So-called,
like they're even like gaslighting their history. Like, you're the so-called elder races, or at least that's what you believe.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, like, obviously, I'm not throwing shade specifically, but just like how, like, kind of, like the different views of like religious or whatever, like how I know like certain like really like diehard like Christian people believe that like the world was only like this old,
6,000 years old. Yes, that is.
Yeah,
there are way too many people who have this weird, strange, non-scientifically confirmable belief.
Like kind of those people like, oh yeah, the so-called dinosaurs you talk about, right? Because those existed. Right. In general, Temeria's residents have a tendency for xenophobia, despite non-humans living in their society. Man, if only this was not like literally everyone else.
Yeah, this is basically all the humans on the continent. So
basically,
not a surprise.
As for culture, big focus on religion, obviously with the many different gods that they worship. Most popular and most widespread religion in the kingdom is the worship of the goddess Melitele, or Melitele, depending on how you want to pronounce it. The cults of the prophet Lebioda and Creve also have their followers. On Savoyne, children burn figurines of Falca to represent her defeated rebellion.
So the traditions, lots of different traditions. It seems like lots of different types of worship.
I was just like, you're trying to remember. I think Savoyne is like another name for like Samhain, or like the pagan holiday that happens on the same day as Halloween. If I'm
interesting,
because I think one of my a friend of mine from Scotland was referring. I think they said that the other day because they actually celebrate this holiday. Not Scotland in particular, but this person in particular, as far as I know. Right.
Yeah. If a quick Google search shows mostly Witcher stuff, but I wonder if it's a variation on the same sounding word that's just spelled differently.
Yeah. Well, because I know in the Witcher books, they do celebrate pagan holidays because there is specifically a story where Geralt meets up with Yennefer on Beltane. So, and that is a pagan holiday that I'm familiar with. As for economy and trade, Temeria is one of the wealthiest realms of the north. The Temerian economy is based on cultivating the production of various goods, trade, and extracting valuable mineral resources from the mountains of Mahakam. The Temerian Orin is one of the most used currencies in the world. Temeria also remains a land with highly developed agriculture, animal husbandry, and food industry. As Mahakam is officially part of the kingdom, Temeria has considerable interests in the extraction of precious metals and the production of high-quality weapons.
So, unlike what we saw with some of the other locations we talked about recently, where they are really strong in like one type of thing, agriculture or mining or whatever, and then they have like limitations, and so they're like, well, the neighbor's land over here has all the grain land we need, so we're just going to keep taking that back and forth. Temeria is a little bit more self-sustainable in pretty much every way. Agriculture, industry, all of that.
Because they do pull. I mean, with them being this close, the as far as like the mining and like weapon industry obviously gets an uplift, because we know like Rivia was kind of like a bit bigger on that kind of stuff because of their like relation to Mahakam. But then it's also, this is one of the most southern locations we've discussed, and like we know, because like I think Toussaint is like directly like southeast of them, and we know how like prosperous they are as far as like agricultural stuff goes and whatnot.
It's
so
much more
they
temperate.
actually get kind of and then with the location to the Yaruga River, and they have like obviously that source of like fresh water to, you know, source
Fishing
proper irrigation and
travel and
so
trade, and
their location is just very like optimal for kind of like creating this. And then of course, with trade, with the 7 different locations that surround, like the 7 different other countries that surround them. So they're kind of like just perfect spot for all of this.
Right. Also a key target then. Like that's the other drawback from that is you're in the middle. Now you're also a target for anybody who wants to try to. So thus you would need something like special forces in order to make sure that spies and things are out there, you know, putting down plots.
I'm sure them being a target for any outside invaders isn't going to come up at all. Right?
No, not at all. Everything's always peaceful.
Fine. Exactly. So moving on, in the Kingdom of Temeria's former coat of arms, so we're talking about their national emblem at this point, and I did put a picture for you to use. There was a lion passant, but the Temerian royal dukes used a different one containing 3 lilies. Since in heraldic symbolism, the lily flower is a sign of the successor to the throne, the royal son, the heir to the throne and scepter. And when Prince Goidamar, the son of old King Gardic, went to fight against the insurgents of the She-Devil Falca, the Temerian army, under his standard, under the emblem of the lily, fought and won decisive victories. And when Goidamar inherited the throne from his father, he established 3 lilies argent on a field sable as the kingdom's coat of arms, as a memento of those victories and for the miraculous escape of his wife and children from the hands of the enemy. And later, King Cedric changed the state coat of arms by a special decree so that it's a black shield aspersed with silver lilies, and the Temerian coat of arms has been like that ever since. Words from Yara, from the Lady of the Lake.
So I'm
Yara being like the Melitala. I think that little boy that's in service to like in the Temple of Melitala that Ciri kind of learns from for a bit.
Right. Yeah, I have it up on the screen. You can see the coat of arms and the yellow background behind it's like a black lion.
It's a lion passant.
Yeah, and then you have the lilies added onto that, and then just the coat with the lilies, and then just a flag with the lion and the black, and then just a flag with the lilies. You can see how it changes over time, which is cool. It's a cool kind of aspect to this, you know. And
we know like it's still the same thing like Witcher, even up to Witcher 3, because like in the beginning they have like the shield with like the Temerian lilies on it, and then that one lady's like, hey, you should probably take that down before you get in trouble with the Nilfgaardians.
Yeah. So no, that's cool, because this happens in the real world with different kingdoms and the way the kingdoms are conquered by other places, or different rulers come to power and whatever, and so the standards change. That's pretty neat. Well, tell you what, why don't we take a quick break here in the middle? We're going to thank our patrons. We've got a new patron to welcome on board, and then we'll be right back with some more history of Temeria. So don't go anywhere.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show. Welcome to John, our newest patron. Thank you for joining. And John actually sent us a message about, hey, where can I send in my my audio to you? And Toasty and I had to think about it for a minute. We're like, wait a minute, is that a thing we do? And sure enough, when we set up the Patreon a while ago, if you sign up as a tier 3 patron, then you can send us an audio clip and we'll add it into the episode. If you have something you want to chime in, we'll put it at the end of a future episode. So, John, feel free to send us up to 5 minutes, just a link to an MP3 or whatever we can download and input into a future episode, and share your thoughts on some things. We'd love to have you do that. And those of you who are already patrons at tier 3, or if you'd like to sign up at that level in order to do the same thing, you're welcome to do that. Also, we have to shout out our higher vampires, Ben of Temeria and Jared M. Thank you so much for your support, and all 20 of our patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you for joining us. If you are interested in any of the stuff I just talked about, or getting t-shirts or all sorts of other goodies, go to patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast and check out all the different things you can get. Also, if you'd like to help us out in other ways, you can leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it out on a future episode of the show if you give us a 5-star review. And ratings on Spotify are also helpful as well. So that's what we got for the middle of the show. Thanks again for joining us, John. And thanks again to all of our patrons and supporters. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
All right, so I have a feeling we're going back in time, back to the origins of what would become the land of Temeria. How far back are we going?
We're going back to why did I just forgot her name? I literally was looking at the name and then looked at you, forgot the name. That's so bad.
I'm just that charming. I just erase your mind from other people.
Surprisingly, going back to Laura Doran.
Laura Doran. We've talked about her a lot.
But not for very long. So before Laura Doran died in solitude, and this is an entry that comes from the multiple sources in The Witcher, the first Witcher game. There's many, like 3 different like books that you can find, like these collections of passages from. But before Laura Doran died in solitude, she gave birth to a daughter who was adopted by the Queen of Redania and named Rhiannon.
Sorry, I was pulling up the stream and the audio was on.
I heard my
and you
name.
echoed. You echoed. It's weird.
Like,
it's weird.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I didn't hit mute fast enough, and it was like, oh, Toasty's echoing now. No, go ahead. Keep going.
This is going to be a very interesting episode. It already is. At the age of 17, Rhiannon married Goidamar, the king of Temeria. 3 years after the wedding, the famous Falco Rebellion began, during which the pregnant Rhiannon was accidentally captured.
Wait, accidentally? Like, that's like, yeah, take all the people right there, take them with us. And they're like, but wait, oh, we accidentally grabbed one that we shouldn't have. Like, how does that work?
I mean, like, I can only think of like one like example of like accidentally capturing is like Avatar: The Last Airbender season 2 when they accidentally kidnap that baby because it like falls down into the crowd and just like leaves with them. Yeah. I don't think this is how it happened, but you know.
No, she was pregnant, so she wasn't a baby. But there was. I guess this is technically an accidental capturing of 2 people.
Oof. Man, that's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
In prison, she gave birth to twins, so kidnapped
3 people. I'm sorry, 3 people.
And subsequently descended into madness. At the same time, the fierce Falca gave birth to a daughter, whom she abandoned to wage war, leaving the child for the mad prisoner to nurse. So the person is in prison taking care of 3 children. That's rough. Soon thereafter, the rebellion was suppressed. Falco was captured and burned at the stake, and King Goidamar regained his wife with 3 children.
Hey, congratulations.
Man, what kind of law surprise did you invoke for that, my guy?
What?
Like, just to like, oh man,
one surprise
my wife
child.
Back with, that's 3 children of surprise 3? Right there, my guy.
Too many.
That's 3 potential witchers.
Yeah.
The first Nilfgaardian invasion began 10 years ago. So this is moving on to another selection. The first Nilfgaardian invasion began 10 years ago. After crossing the Yaruga River, the Black Ones attacked Sintra. The capital was taken by surprise, its citizens were slaughtered, and the queen committed suicide. course, we've heard that before. Brugge, Sodden, and Temeria stood against Nilfgaard. It seemed that the Nilfgaardian offensive was unstoppable, but the three states managed to halt it at the Battle of Sodden. Altogether, 22 mages fought for the Northern Kingdoms, 14 of whom died, yet in the end, it was the mages who negotiated a truce.
Right. And this is that whole period that we see in the Witcher TV show and War. All of that stuff. Yeah.
After 3 peaceful years, during a meeting of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, there occurred a schism in the organization and its members fought each other. As a result, many died and the Brotherhood disbanded. At the same time, the Imperial forces attacked the Northern Kingdoms. The kings were divided, arguing, and couldn't face Nilfgaard on their own. King Foltest signed a truce with the Black Ones, yet it proved short-lived. The Imperial army pushed forward and was not defeated until the Battle of Brenna. This victory proved pivotal, reminding the feuding rulers that Nilfgaard is not invincible. The kings of the North reunited and faced the Black Ones together. Finally, a peace treaty was signed, changing the balance of power in the world forever.
So that's the background stuff, right? That's the here's how we got where we are now.
And then first, the generals of the first Nilfgaardian War and the second Nilfgaardian War, King Foltest, of course, being the most recent monarch of Temeria.
Yeah, and we see a lot of him in the games. We hear a lot about him in the books and the show. So he's one of the. I mean, he's not necessarily the most competent or likable, but he's one of the monarchs
one of the most well known.
Yeah, he shows up probably the most, I guess. I would venture to say, of the Northern.
He's
Kingdoms.
like the only one that has a name so far. I mean, we know the names of the other ones in the show, but he's the only one that's actually been really named, except for Meath.
Yeah.
So yeah. So to get more specific, for Foltest's reign in 1263, during the First Northern War, King Foltest of Temeria sent the Temerian army to Lower Sodden in an attempt to help defend against the invading Nilfgaards. So he sent them to that location where the mages fought, and they helped to rout the enemy at that point. While the Nilfgaardians were defeated, Temeria received many refugees from nearby Sintra after its capital was sacked. After the war, tensions grew with Redania as well as Nilfgaard, and an influx of cheap Nilfgaardian goods started passing through Temeria, damaging the economy, which of course is very big deal because they have probably one of the best economies in the Northern Kingdoms.
Right, they're being undercut by a neighbor. That's interesting. Yeah.
King Vitzimir II of Redania forced Novigrad into Ius Stapulae, or I think another term for it from what I looked up was just Stapulae, which is a Latin term which means a right of staple. In old European law, it meant a right or privilege of certain towns of blocking imported merchandise and obligating it to be offered for sale in their own markets. So basically, we don't want your Nilfgaardian stuff. Get it out of here.
Right. Yeah, they're actually doing economic warfare. Well, not really warfare, but they're playing that game without being openly at war with each other. They're still trying to undermine each other's economies.
So they put that into effect, blocking Temerian and Nilfgaardian goods from entering the city. In response, Foltest issued the law in Vitsima and Gorsvalin in an attempt to restabilize the economy. So he followed suit to try and get his stuff back on track. In early 1267, on the brink of a second Nilfgaardian war, Foltest issued messages to his lords and vassals, instructing them to collect troops for the army and to store supplies and fortify their castles, prepared for the possibility of sieges in the coming conflict.
I mean, Nilfgaard wouldn't continue to make future war against the Northern Kingdoms. That's totally not something they'd be into, right?
Yeah, no. Why would they do that?
There's never anything to worry about there.
Yeah, Nilfgaard, they definitely learned from the one time, right? They don't ever invade the Northern Kingdoms again.
Sure.
So moving on to the events of The Witcher, first game,
right? Yeah.
Yep. The prologue is set at Kaer Morhen, which is in Kaedwen, not Temeria, and the following chapters are all set in or around Vitsima. You are not free to travel around Temeria as you wish, as the available locations change with each chapter. There is no way to travel large distances to reach other familiar locations in the game world.
You're kind of stuck with each little zone that you're in during that period of the game. Yeah.
And at the top of the map is Vitsima. So take a map look to see all kind of like the locations. At the top of the map is Vitsima, with the outskirts southeast of it, Old Vitsima to the southwest, and the Swamp Cemetery and the swamp further to the south. Lakeside is just south of the Blackturn Island, almost in the southwest corner of Lake Vitsima. So just like the whole, and I'm not going to recount the entire events of The Witcher in this episode, but yeah, so the events of The Witcher and what takes place in that game.
Yeah, and Vizima being in Temeria. So in case that wasn't clear to people who are listening, like that's
right. That's
in Temeria. Like they go from Kaer Morhen to Vizima, and then that's where a lot of the events take place.
Yeah. And then we have a journal entry from that same game. Bit more. Temeria's population is not exclusively human. It also includes dwarves, elves, gnomes, and dryads. After the devastating war with Nilfgaard, many areas are haunted by monsters, which have hitherto not constituted a serious threat, while the realm's roads are made unsafe by outlaws and common bandits. So, war leads us into chaos. As a result, the Witcher profession is once again in demand, though people continue to treat Witchers with caution and disdain, often calling them mutants and freaks. I mean,
par for the course.
Yeah. The Kingdom of Temeria has silver lilies on a black background as its emblem. The powerful country has gained ever more influence in recent years under the wise rule of King Foltest.
The wise rule of King. So, just to, if you're tuning in, this is one of your first episodes listening to. We always talk about the things that happen in the books and then the things that happen in the games and how they might be different. This is interesting because who is writing this? This little section for the first game, the wise rule of King Foltest.
The wise rule of King. Yes. So, I mean, it's like stuff like this is always done by like propaganda. So like, it's probably a Temerian who was like, yeah, I had to write that or else they'd decapitate me.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean that's how the stuff is always written anyways. Across the Pontar River, the kingdom borders Redania. To the south and east is hemmed by the mountain ranges, including Mahakam, the mainstay of dwarves and gnomes, past which lie the lands of Lyria and Aedirn. The capital of Temeria is Vitsima, lying on the shore of Lake Vitsima. The second largest city is Maribor. Temeria mints its own coin, the Orin. The most widespread religions are the cult of Melithala and the belief in the eternal fire. So as we kind of progress into the progression of the eternal flame, Temeria is home to the headquarters and many commanders of the Order of the Flaming Rose.
So this, for the most part, lines up. We've got this weird wise rule of King Foltest part, but it matches for the most part. We've got the Orin, we've got Melithala, we have the locations, the mention of Mahakam with the dwarves and the gnomes, and that's part of what makes the game so interesting is that they really do try to be very accurate to the source material.
And then that's of course, being the whole game's events happening in like Temeria, but that's other than that, that is what we have for Temeria in The Witcher 1. Moving on to The Witcher 2, where the setting does not take place here. There's far less. So we have a journal entry, again, from more like books that you can find. Anyone who wishes to be considered an educated man rather than a common boor should mention Temeria first, where the northern kingdoms are concerned.
Is this written by the same person who wrote the last one?
Probably is. It's a big fan of Temeria, man. The realm's coat of arms is a black shield dotted with silver fleur-de-lis. or the lilies.
I feel like this needs to be done in like a snooty like accent. Like anyone who wishes to be considered an educated man rather than a common boor should mention Temeria first when the northern kingdoms are concerned. Like, right? Like this is the tone of the person who wrote this.
Yeah. And its capital is Vitsima, where the royal palace erected by King Foltest stands. The country extends its protection to several surrounding domains, including the mountainous dwarven homeland of Mahakam. Currently, Temeria's neighbors include the mighty Redania, the wooded Kaidwin, and Sidaris, known for the truly pathetic poetry of Valdo Marx.
Known for the truly pathetic poetry of Valdo Marx. Yes.
A troubadour unworthy of the title.
Oh man, this guy's got it out.
Devotes himself to besmirching the work of other superior artists.
Oh, this guy got burned by Valdo, and it's like specifically after.
So
him.
upset.
Which is so like
upset. That's not even like related to Temeria, which is great. He's talking about a poet from Sidaris.
Right.
So he of course had to go on a tangent to just like go in on this guy.
That's awesome.
The other places in Temeria are essential to our story and thus must be mentioned. Or sorry, two other places. I can read, I promise. Firstly, north of Vitsima, near the white bridge that links the banks of the Pontar, stands the proud fortress and walled town of the Lavalette family. Secondly, further up the Pontar lies the small river port and trading post of Flotsam. Both will prove important to the beginning of our story.
Yep. Yeah, and that's The Witcher 2. Again, is a very specific location or set of locations.
And there's a set of Temerian armor available to Geralt in The Witcher 2.
There you go. I love that there's a city named Flotsam, or it's like a village, but like Flotsam and Jetsam, like when in a shipwreck, you have Flotsam and Jetsam, the things that break off and float in the water. So Flotsam's the name of a city. That's pretty cool. So that's it for The Witcher 2. What about The Witcher 3?
I mean, we hear a little bit about him. So
it's like almost the entire setting of the game, or at least the main game, until you get to Skellige.
Yeah. Well, we move on to
then there's the expansion stuff that takes you other places, but like for the first like 40 hours of that game, you're in Temeria.
Yeah, but at this point, Temeria is not really Temeria anymore. It is then taken over. Nilfgaard invades and takes the entirety of Temeria and subjugates its people. So at this point, I mean, like I mentioned with the beginning, like kind of intro part of The Witcher 3 of like, you know, they talk about, they have like the shield hanging with the Temerian lilies, and they're like, hey, you should probably take that down before you upset the black ones. So,
and the tree with all the hanging bodies.
Yeah.
Yep.
That one's so, and so they kind of have, and it's not even because that's like the edge of Temeria. I have to go look at
there's like a battle line across the map where you can go from like the Temerian area to what's left of the Temerian area to the Nilfgaardian forces, and you can travel back and forth there because then we kind of move up to because you can move up to like Novigrad and Oxenfurt, which are Redania. So in which or they have extended to or whatever. So and it's very much marked by that battle line of like, here's the Nilfgaardians, here's Redania, and you kind of sit on that, and then of course with the events of the story kind of decide which way the war ends up. Yeah, and you come across a lot of people who are Temerian who are very unhappy with the situation, and some of them are still plotting rebellion, and most of them are just depressed and trying to feed their pigs or whatever. Right? Like, yeah, it's a rough situation. Like the beginning of that game is just like, man, everybody's just living in squalor. And it's one of the things that I think they did so well with these games is that in so many of these types of games where you have this like medieval style world with a bunch of people living in, you know, like serf style lives, and yet they still look like pretty healthy modern types of people. Does that make sense? But in the Witcher games, everybody, like the majority of the commoners are like ugly or they're like in The Witcher 2, so many of the people walking around, like so many of the men are wearing those pants that basically look like diapers. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's almost like these like grown up diapers that they're wearing. And maybe that was just a style of, you know, easy to wrap around your body, lower clothing that is common historically that we never see anymore. But so many of them are just like, they're dirty and they're filthy and they've got really bad hair, and some of them are just overweight but like regular people look, especially in a situation where people don't have health care, they don't have good food, they don't like, you know, like they're living these hard lives. They just look like it's been rough. You know, not everyone's walking around looking like Henry Cavill.
Yeah. And they're even in that sense of like, they're walking around with, or they're like living in a situation of like the transference of like the power that has always been in their lives to the all of a sudden new shift of the invaders who are taking over, and the lack of power because they haven't, at this point, Nilfgaardians have not instituted a ruling system.
Right. It's just kind of
besides
a
like
weird middle thing where they just don't know what's going on. Army generals
who run stuff essentially from forts at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
cool
crazy.
Army generals to add.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like that one guy that the first one we meet in the first chapter of the game, who's just like, oh, you know, we would love to, we just, you know, give us whatever grain you can provide. We'll be understanding. And then he brings them grain that's not that great. And then absolutely like beats the ever living crap out of them because of it. And it's like,
understanding.
That's rough. That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. There are still places that have to deal with this stuff right now. Like, we're very fortunate that we're not there. But geez. Well, that's most of it for Temeria right now. Where are we going next time?
As usual, to take a bit of a deeper dive into some of the bigger figures. Maybe we'll talk about Foltest.
The wise King Foltest.
The wise King Foltest.
So wise.
Who did so many great things for Temeria.
Yeah, such a good, wise leader. Cool. Well, look forward to that. We're gonna hit that next time. Toasty, what do you got? What else you got going on that you want to share before we head out?
So just like a thing of like news. It's old news at this point, kind of. But we didn't mention it last time. But we have shared it around. But they announced like that remake of The Witcher 1. Yeah. So you can, for people that have problems, which is most people, problems with like the combat system and things that they did, hopefully getting
it's pretty clunky.
Yeah. And getting a much more friendly, I assume console friendly version of The Witcher 1.
If they just made, if they rebuilt The Witcher 1 in The Witcher 3 engine, people would love it.
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
But for anyone who's like never played The Witcher 1, we can look forward to that, and it's going to be a lot more available and just friendly, or people friendly, as far as the systems and mechanics go.
There's speculation for Witcher 3's like new console upgrade still coming by the end of the year. That they might be like, there were some leaks that came from one of the store vendors somewhere with a date sometime in like early December, potentially for putting it on shelves and things. So if you want to replay through The Witcher 3 on your new consoles with upgraded graphics and stuff, that might happen sooner than later. But again, maybe it's just a leak or something fake, who knows? But they originally said it would come this year. So maybe they're still able to hold to that. Maybe it'll be like December 31st.
Wasn't it like this year? Wasn't it supposed to be like Q2 though this year? So
yeah,
we're way past that.
Yeah, CDPR is so bad at projecting when things are going to be ready.
Yeah. But as for other stuff, follow us at Lorecast on Twitter. And then check out if you're interested in Cyberpunk, the Cyberpunk Lorecast that I do with the Genesis, as well as the actual play Cyberpunk Red podcast that I'm on with the Fumbling for an Almighty Crit Gang, Cyberpunk apostrophe D. Man, sometimes recording for that stuff just goes wild. Like this past weekend,
I believe it.
Supposed to record, had a lot of delays. At the moment we're ready to get down to business, internet goes out. It's like, geez. I guess we're not recording today.
Oh, jeez.
So this stuff was wild.
So on a similar note, yesterday we for the Mass Effect Lorecast, Sam and I got to interview Mark Meir, the voice of Male Shepherd, the lead in the game if you pick a male character. And we were getting ready. We were just getting set up. Mark was running a little bit late. He gets on. We only have so much time of his time to interview him. And we just get to the point where we're right about ready to record. And then the fire alarms go off in Sam's building. And he's like, guys, I don't know what's going on. I need to run outside and see if the building's on fire. Turns out somebody bumped like a sprinkler or something and it set it off. So it was fine. We still got the interview in, but it was potentially not going to happen, which was like, oh God, really? But it worked out. It worked out.
I mean, like, I'm kind of crazy. I've done this situation before where I'm in the middle of something of like, I know a friend I used to have, like their dorm building for their college, like the fire alarms went off like infamously often for no reason. Like, so most of the time they just stayed. They're just like, whatever.
They just stopped dealing with it.
And so like, if I'd have been in that situation and been like interviewing Mark Meir, I'd be like, guess I'll die because I'm in the middle of it.
Except they would have come through the mic. It would have been like super annoying for anybody listening. But yeah.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. But we've got lots of other shows. Go to robotsradio.net. Check out all the different shows. There's a bunch of stuff there. If you're into video games, into role-playing games, into fandoms of any type, then we might have a show for you. Go check it out. But that's what we got. We'll see you guys next time. We're going to talk more about the wise King Foltest. So stay safe out there. And until next time.
Stay safe on the path.
There you go. Sorry. I kind of jumped on top of it. Oh, well.
You almost messed it up again.
Almost messed it up.
Again.
I'm so bad at this. You think I should practice more. All right. Bye, everybody. See ya. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.